Hi there, it's Michelle from Botanica Wellness, and I want to chat with you for just a few minutes about one really common cause of mood and mental health issues in women. I work with a lot of women to support their nervous system biology and address symptoms like anxiety, depression, feeling overwhelmed, having trouble, completing tasks, maybe struggling with unhealthy coping mechanisms, eating disorders. And one of the things that I often assess in my clients is brain inflammation. Because if the brain is inflamed, it's going to be really hard to do the things we need to do to get better. And it can impact everything about our health, including our gut health and our nervous system. And so, looking at this brain inflammation piece has been really an important step and often overlooked in a lot of the women who are coming to me for help with their mood. And so I wanted to share with you a couple of thoughts about brain inflammation, what you might look for, how to address this. Because again, if you're struggling with your mood, you're struggling with any thing with your own mental health, needing some help with just feeling more stable with your mood, or maybe it's brain fog, maybe it's you're noticing your short-term memory is not what it used to be. You're noticing more irritability. These things can all be related to this brain inflammation piece. And so let me explain for just a minute what brain inflammation is. So our brain, our body really does a lot to protect our brain because it's like command central, right? For everything else about our body. And so our brain, it has this blood-brain barrier around it to protect it, but things can actually cross that blood-brain barrier and begin to cause some inflammation in the brain. And over time, that's damaging to the brain, to the cells of the brain, especially the cells that are called the microglia of the brain. These are the cells that, and one of their functions is to help to kind of clean out the cellular debris, the waste products from the brain. And just know it's normal that we have, these waste products, these metabolic wastes that are part of our normal metabolic processes. And your brain uses a lot of energy, right? In order to do all the things it does, think, control everything about our body, our autonomic nervous system, our breathing, our heart rate. And so our brain is just always going and it always needs support, and it always needs to be kind of cleaning out the cellular debris that can cause inflammation if this isn't happening the way it should be. And there are a number of things that can impact our brain and cause inflammation. So some of these I think are obvious. If you've ever had a head injury, a trauma to the head, then that is definitely going to cause some inflammation in the brain. And yet there are some other things like gluten sensitivities, uh, sensitivities to dairy, some of these inflammatory foods that we think about impacting our gut health actually have a huge impact on the brain. And gluten, I would say, is one of the big ones there. So if you know you have gluten sensitivity, that can actually be a sign that you might need to address your brain inflammation. And I actually have this assessment that I give to clients when I'm working with them to support their mental health and to assess for brain inflammation. And I am looking at the priming events, which just means the triggers that cause the brain inflammation. Again, it can be an actual event like a car accident or some kind of blunt force trauma to the head, a whiplash. It could be something maybe not as obvious, again, like gluten, or infections, right? Things like mold toxicity. Heavy metal toxicities is another one that's really damaging to the brain. And not just heavy metals, but also an imbalance in our minerals. So one of the top uh, one of the top triggers I assess for when I'm working with women to support their mood and mental health is an imbalance in their copper and their zinc. And knowing that copper, when we have too much copper in our body, it actually causes, oh, my cat's going to start sneezing. It actually causes some symptoms like irritability, high stress response. Panic attacks have been related to copper excess. So I can assess for this. I have really specific symptoms that we can pinpoint to copper. And I'll talk a little bit more about copper another time, but just know that these can all be triggers for brain inflammation. And when I know that these triggers are part of one of my clients' picture, kind of their symptom picture, then I know this is something we need to support. You might also just look at these symptoms of brain inflammation. So this can look like brain fog, can have that low tolerance for stress, just trouble making decisions, trouble following through. You might also show up in your body. You might look like clumsiness or difficulty, staying balanced because the brain is having trouble communicating then with the body and what it needs to do. Delayed reaction time, for instance. Headaches, and of course, depression, anxiety. Some of these shifts in our mood can be a sign of brain inflammation. So if you have brain inflammation or you suspect that you do, it's really important to address this as one of our first steps because again, it's so hard to move forward and to heal our body and to fix our mood when our brain is inflamed. So I want to just give you a couple of quick things that you can do. First of all, I would look at the diet, even if you're thinking, but I'm not sensitive to gluten, or, my diet is pretty good. A lot of times there are some foods in our diet that can be triggering inflammation. And of course, gluten is the top of the list. Dairy can also be inflammatory for a lot of women. Sugar, of course, we know blood sugar balance is so critical for brain health. So make sure you're getting that protein, healthy fats, fiber from your veggies at every meal. And those are just a few of the really simple things you can do with your diet, of course. Antioxidants, eat your fruits and veggies. There are some herbs as well that can really support this brain inflammation piece, just really helping to calm down the brain. Because when our brain is inflamed, we have these primed microglia, these cells in our brain that are turned on for inflammation. Just know that they're much more prone to being turned on again by other triggers later on, whether that's just stress or certain inflammatory foods or another priming event like a car accident. So we want to make sure if we have active brain inflammation, that we're really supporting that because now our brain, again, is just really kind of primed towards this inflammatory reaction. So make sure you're eating plenty of protein, healthy fats, lots of fruits and veggies. Fixing your gut, if you know that you have leaky gut, that can be really important in terms of addressing brain inflammation. And then herbs, things like turmeric, things like bacopa, gotu kola, ginkgo. These can actually be really supportive of helping to address brain inflammation. Lion's mane is another favorite one of mine. When I work with clients, I'll put together a formula for them that's really specific to their needs and how they're presenting. But any of these herbs would be a good place to start in addressing your brain inflammation. Just make sure that if you are dealing with anxiety, depression, the sense of overwhelm, having difficulty getting tasks done, moving forward in life, that you're really supporting your nervous system biology because it's really running the show, as I like to say, and controlling a lot of our decisions and our ability to move forward with our healing journey. So reach out to me if you have any questions, if you need to be assessed for brain inflammation, if you want to know more about working with me, I'm happy to support you. And there is a guide in the link below in the description where you can grab a free brain mood fix assessment. And it talks about your neurotransmitters. This is another reason why neurotransmitters are often out of balance because of brain inflammation. So while we can do a lot to support our neurotransmitter function, which are those feel-good chemicals in the brain, we don't want to overlook this piece about brain inflammation because it's one of those root cause reasons for low neurotransmitter function and low mood. So check that out, grab it if you don't already have it, and I will see you next time.